All right, gorgeous. How we doing?
Hey, beautiful peeps. It's so nice to be on. I so love talking to you.
I
It's just
know
awesome.
it's so good, isn't it? Well, we were talking about catching up and maybe not fully enjoying our current experience and all the things that are like coming in. How are you feeling about
Yeah,
that?
playing absolute catch-up mode. Yeah, I'm glad we had that pre-conversation because I'm glad I didn't try and humanize what I was expressing there because for me, it is all energy. Like that's why I think our season is called The Power of Energy because it truly is all frequency and energy. And when we predominantly work in them worlds and realms, it is hard sometimes to put it into human expressions and feelings and words when you understand the resonance, you get what message is being brought to you, but you don't necessarily have the human words to put that into like, oh, okay, this is this and this is that. So that conversation really helped me actually verbally and physically visualize and communicate what is going on right now. Because I guess a part of me feels like, well, skip back to 6 months ago or even this time last year. Wow. It's actually worlds apart. And yeah, I just had a baby, so I do have to acknowledge that at this time last year. But even the physical environment, the car I was driving, the day-to-day life I was experiencing, the stress, the pressure, the overwhelm, the complete burnout. And I wasn't afraid to own that. I was talking about it at the time. If you skip back to the year, this time last year's videos, you'll see it.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I've got a lot of the things I needed physically in the physical world to create stability, safety, and I see that, I acknowledge that. I've got a beautiful house, I've got a beautiful car, I've got a beautiful family. I'm finding more peace and harmony in my life, in my family and relationships, in my day-to-day life and flow. I'm finding regulation. And we were just talking. I think a big thing for me is moving my body and expressing myself. So when I'm in a like fight or flight freeze period of time, I don't really move. And obviously I walk, I do my daily day things. But I notice afterwards when I start doing the things like dancing, yoga, hiking, wild swimming, the things for me that are my ways of expressing, regulating, connecting in with myself, my body, my feelings, I don't do that in that time. And I think it's because I'm in pure survival mode. Like I need to just get through this and I need to get through this day and I need to make sure that's done and this done and this done. And it's so I'm just running in this hamster wheel trying to live and exist and regulate through the daily small moments. And I was doing the other day doing some yoga in the garden and started working out and I thought, oh, this is new. And it wasn't an intentional thing of, oh, I'm really regulated now. I'm going to start doing yoga again. It was like, okay, I find in the mornings now I'm not in fight or flight manic stress prep mode. Like, I was thinking the other day, I seem to have more time in the mornings now than going out, than I'm going out at certain times, but it feels like there's more time rather than it being manically stressed. And I feel like now I'm in that catch up mode. So I'm not quite there of, oh yeah, everything's perfect, everything has a place, everything's flowing. It feels like I'm getting there, but I'm having space to get up and do yoga, to get up and journal, to plan all these new ideas, to make movement in my business and take action on the ideas that I've been having for a long, long time and actually feel like things are actually moving. And there's space for creation, whether that is physical expression. Again, I've been looking, I really want to go wild swimming again. And them thoughts for me only come when I'm having some semblance of ability to feel like there's more than just surviving. And so it's quite nice to think, okay, yeah, we're getting there as a collective. I'm not saying this is where everybody is, but I've noticed it in a lot of people around my timeline. We're getting there. We're all moving else. We're all getting in these new frequencies. We're all settling in new energies. But because of that, because of the time where we wasn't feeling this grounding, this stability, we're now having to play catch up of all the human things, all the emotional things we might have blocked out. My nana died 2 years ago in 3 days on the 26th. And I feel like I'm only just fully processing the grief on a human level 2 years later, because I was postpartum, then pregnant, then postpartum. And so my body's only just like processing the grief physically and allowing myself to actually feel it and release it. So catch up for me in the longest answer ever is all the different layers that I'm now having time and space to actually look at because I'm not just in survival mode. And the survival modes can peak and drop. So this has happened before in my life. And I was living in periods of time where I lived in survival mode for years and then had to play catch up and catch up healing for years of all that, just non-stop and no regulation. So I don't experience that now, but I definitely experienced a good year of, dysregulation and overwhelm and no break in between that. And I'm starting to notice the peace, but I'm also noticing how much around me feels like it needs to be tied up and finished. And just also not enjoying that process. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming,
For sure.
and I'm owning that. I'm not afraid to own it. It's a little bit overwhelming. Some days it's exciting. Some days it's feeling good and productive. And some days I just really don't want to do it. And it's draining me. And I'm feeling just like, wow, there's so much to do. And I don't have the energy to do it all. And I know I need to do it now. But yeah, it's just, I'm in this weird up and down, riding the wave, limbo phase, blurred lines. How about you? What you think, what you feeling and experiencing?
I mean, I've definitely experienced kind of closing off the loops. I call them closing off the loops that have been there for a hot second, that we have
Hmm.
enough energy and time, at least I have enough energy and time to like do it now. So it's making sure like those are getting closed off and also opening the entrance to all the new things that are coming in. But I have to say for myself, the nervous system has been very tight and attached to um, maybe not perceiving the good things coming in for a long time because of like
Right,
stress or whatever
right.
the case is in our human realities that have been moving through. So I think that it's not it doesn't have like a platform for it, right? So
My God, I totally agree with that.
like a constant like okay, we are creating the platform right now. What do we want that to look like? Because I notice my body going into but this is work. I'm not gonna get this done. What are we doing? Right? What is happening with this? And I'm
And
like,
this new thing comes in, and you're like, yeah, but that's not fixed, and that's not done, and I don't have this, and I can't have this, and I don't have this, and this might not last because of this. And it's like, you've just got this beautiful thing. Why are you doing this?
exactly.
Like, what's going on?
Like we
Yeah, I
just
really resonate with that.
a house. We get and my body's like, but I still got. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop you for a second. Let's make a platform here. And so that's what I've just been doing. Whether I write down a bridge point, which is like we're experiencing the new things that are coming in. I've wrote that a few times, and there's a
Yeah,
new coming in. And it's okay to have the old be there too. Like I'm not gonna force my nervous system and body out of something that it's not completely ready for yet because it's closing off these ties and links. Uh, but it hasn't been like this overly exciting process. Like it's
yeah.
like
No, I
I've got
get
to
that.
do this exactly, touch all the buttons. I got to close these off. I got to finish things off financially. I got to open up a space for my business. So it's been running like really extensively. So I've had to like stop and be like, we're creating this platform because we haven't had one before of what does it consistently look like to see what you want coming in, to be able to receive it, to hold it,
Right,
to be able to
right.
feel the things that feel like ick. Um, and like, no, that's not gonna like pull you down because sometimes for my body, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to now do this. I'm going down in
Yeah,
frequency.
yep,
Bullshit,
yep, yep, yep.
you know?
Yeah. Don't have to do that. I've learned that. I hate phone calls, like official phone calls. We have to ring people and talk to them about human bills and phone calls. And I just put it off that much that it becomes an issue sometimes. And I'm just really trying to not do that at the moment and trying to just think, it's not going to be that bad. Like, I'm going to have a really nice person on the phone and it's going to go really well. And actually, 9 times out of 10, it does. And I always think that was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. But the preemption of it being bad because of my previous experiences when I was on a lower timeline is real for sure. And I'm really glad you mentioned that because I think that's kind of part of the catch up thing. We are now moving at a faster timeline, at a faster pace where we are receiving, we are creating faster. But like you said, we've never actually experienced this before. So all these other things are kind of catching up with us of all the times where we had something nice and it was taken away, where we got something given and it was manipulated and used against us, where, we felt really safe and then the rug was pulled from under us and we didn't expect it. And so it's like all these times where we had these bad things happen are still there. And I guess that made a lot of sense with why we don't necessarily have the platform for these nice things coming in and all this is because probably a lot of the time we've not experienced it. Like you say, it's not been the reality for a lot of us. And in part of that catch up to be able to meet ourselves at the level where we know we're at on a subconscious and spiritual level, it's knowing that how do we kind of let go, release, move through them barriers as they come up? to allow us to get to that point of receiving without, blocking it away, worrying, fearful base, because I guess sometimes it's just subconscious. And as we are in like this kind of race with ourselves to create more, to be more, to be on this higher timeline, but also then to let go and shed all of the things that are stopping us from being there and holding it, like you say. Sometimes we're getting things, but then losing them because we're not maintaining that frequency. So I guess it's a good question to ask as we're in this like catch up mode. How do we kind of slow down with self? And I know every version of creating a new platform is different for every human, but
Yep.
what kind of advice would you give there for people that are struggling to implement that into reality?
I mean, I think when you said blur lines, that's what hits it the most, at least for me, my system, because we're talking about timelines and versions of ourselves that have been running these
Mm,
programs for a long time, and it's infinite, right? There's an infinite amount of these timelines that we like to say are on lower levels, but I don't use that anymore. These are just pieces of myself, right? That are closing off spaces. So to not give them respect for the process that they've been in and being like, nah, you need to get out of my life, right? And, oh, wait, no, hold on, hold
yeah.
on. I need to take responsibility for these lines that are a little bit blurred, right? And this is like coming in for me in the direction of things being said about me that like I had no acknowledgement for, that I didn't have a direct contact for, and those types of blurred lines. And I'm like, how do I internally shift this and hit this direct
Mm,
and drop those lines? Well, I'm not going to drop them. What I'm going to do is sit with my nervous system, my body, and my frequency and be like, hey, what feels most aligned right now? Because I don't want to continue that cycle or frequency, right? I don't want to
right.
put it in. And it's not just like for me, because it would be like, yeah, that doesn't resonate with me. So we're going to just, nope. If it keeps continuing, then I'm like, I have an action point here within myself. Right. So
Yeah.
I'm, for me, I'm going to hit that head on and be like, hey, um, I want to directly hit this. If there's a conversation that needs to happen, if there's something that we need to do to resolve this, whatever the case is, let's get that shifted and give my body the
Yeah.
platform to do that, so it can regulate back into center. And even whatever happens with that, that's not really my problem or my issue with that. It's I'm going to do the thing that allows my nervous system to feel regulated in the space and know that like I took a step for it.
Yeah. And I love that because it is like accountability and ownership. And I think that that's what sometimes, I don't know about you, but I have experienced it a lot in this. I won't even say in the spiritual community because it's just in the world, really, isn't it? Just like in general. You see people, and a lot of the kids is older than me because I am quite young. I'm not that young now, I'm getting on. But I am a bit younger than a lot of the people I do connect with and vibe with because I've got more of a mature, conscious frequency. So I don't really, I do connect with different age people. And I guess sometimes that comes with my expectation that people are going to have skill sets. And I don't mean this disrespectfully. I'm not talking about anyone in particular. I'm just over my overall knowledge. It seems like I had this perception that, the older, especially those in the spiritual community, they're going to have like this more wisdom, knowledge, accountability of self, like communication skills, abilities to regulate, abilities to, reflect and speak. And quite early on into my spiritual journey, I realized that actually the age thing really don't matter at all. That's not a relevant factor in any way. And even the spiritual labels, the titles, even the amount of time spent in the spiritual world, you know, actually does not matter either. If Because it's all energy and frequency, and it's about that person could have gone their whole life to 60, 70-year old, go through a spiritual awakening in 1 year and get all these downloads and all this. I mean, it doesn't often happen that way, but it could, it absolutely could. And then you could have someone that maybe went through a form of an awakening at like 20 years old and then got hooked on the ego, got hooked on the feedback, got hooked on the, oh, look at me, and then never actually progressed up there, but stayed in the spiritual world for like, what, 30, 40, 50 years, but
Totally.
not have that connection to
Uh-huh.
inner self, to truth, to authenticity. And that's just an example. I just made that up because the point is, it's not about as age, as job, as experience, even in some senses, and no experience does help, but it's more so about your connection, your ability to go, actually, does that feel right to me? Does that feel right in my body? To know how to communicate with your body and your nervous system and differentiate between your intuition and your own trauma based responses and maybe self-defense mechanisms and protection-based things from your own trauma. Be able to then express that to others without attacking, without avoiding conflict, without avoiding any form of communication, without projecting the blame or, projecting all the energy onto one party. There is every right for you to have any feeling, whatever you're going through, whatever you're thinking. You are completely right to think, feel, and own that if that's your truth. That's absolutely fine. But the key word is owning it. The key word is, being able to stand in it and go, actually, this is just not vibing with me. Whether it's a person, a place, a job, a relationship, anything. I know some things are more difficult to just physically step out of, but there is always a choice, whether it's just to have a break, a rest, a recalibration, a time to reconnect to your actual inner voice. And I think that's what's really important for me, that ownership and accountability and also connection. Because if you're connected internally to your inner self, then you're not going to be in doubt when you feel something. You're not going to be afraid to then own it and speak upon it and take action upon it. You're not going to be afraid to then also put boundaries in place, maybe, or, feel comfortable to communicate it because it's your honest truth. And I think that's something that we were just saying before we got on here. There is a lot of reflections that can be placed upon self. I've been called all sorts, honest to God. Sometimes I'm the most loved person, especially by people's parents. Sometimes people love me. And then sometimes, I'm the, oh, no, not that word. And I guess it just depends on the frequency. And a lot of the time I've been called some really nasty things. And especially a couple of times I was called a cult leader, which I found hilarious. Love to know where my cult is right now. That'd be nice to know, but yeah, I guess their reflections of me are their own internal reflections of whatever was going on for them at that time. And differentiating that is really difficult. And it is hard not to let that have an internal impact on you. But it did really get to a point where I just thought, man, this is not true to me. That doesn't feel in any way resonant to my body, my truth. In some ways, there might be a projection of their own stuff that's coming on to me. There might be fear, there might be lack of education. And in some ways, there might be some small energetic truths if they felt a little bit intimidated by my energy or a little bit overwhelmed by my passion about what I speak about. They're allowed to feel that way. There's no reason they can't feel that way. But again, the articulation and communication is the problem. It's
Yep.
the labelization, the negative stigma, the judgment, the making it a problem. I think because we weren't taught these basic skills as children, going back to what we were saying earlier, it's the catch up in all aspects. If we were all held emotionally nurtured, communicated to on a soft, gentle level, explained things to heard emotionally invalidated and, a sacred space and allowed these skills to nurture as a child, then as adults, we wouldn't be living in this toxic, ego projected, nasty world. And I guess it is just remembering that some people also had different experiences to others, which means they are playing more catch up than you might be, than others might be. They might have not got any of the basic nurturing, communication, conflict resolution, safety building, nervous system regulation at all. And so now they're working from minus down here just to get where you or someone else might have just been kind of walked into life with as an adult because of your experiences too. And, like we were saying, probably 99% of us experience the survival mode, the trauma experiences. And so we're all playing catch up in some ways. It's not a competition, but it's just having that awareness that if someone is acting out of a really non-healed state, not lesser healed state, then maybe just look at why. And I'm not saying you have to spend the time to figure it out, but it's always worth thinking in your consciousness that maybe they're playing catch up in different ways, or also maybe they're choosing to stay there and not much we can do about that. So yeah, I guess the catch up thing is the thing, just recognizing we're all at different levels and that's for a reason.
Absolutely. And that goes back to what you said before is like, can you connect with your internal compass?
Mm,
What's your body saying? What is your trauma saying in certain phases? What is your environment or anything that you've been programmed with saying to you versus what your intuition is or what your soul resonance is coming in with? And how then do you work that? If someone is in their own space and having their own perspective, and that's something that gets thrown out, whether that is a perspective or that feels like a judgment or whatever the case is, what is your internal network gonna work with? Is it gonna step back? Because I would step back and get a feel for it and go, okay, is this real for me or is it not? Okay, then what do I want to do
Mhm.
about it? Right? Do I want to speak up about it? Do I want to resolve it? And if there's enough internal knowing going on with that, it'll be very clear what I want to do and what I don't want to spend my energy on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And everyone's allowed to do that. Everyone's allowed to just choose, this is not what I want to put my energy on. But I think, like you were saying, it's that, okay, I'll take a step back here. There's no reason why you have to communicate just in that moment when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, dysregulated. That's a great thing to do with anyone that's also experiencing this. But it's then, like you said, that follow up on, okay, I'm either going to decide this isn't right for me, this environment isn't right, I need a break, I need space, and then communicating that. You
Yep.
know, again, everyone's more than right within their rights to acknowledge that some energy might just not be for them. That's exactly what you should be doing. But communicating that in, I guess, the most heart-centered way you can is is quite important, I think, at this time in life because we are in a bit of a shift. We are in this shifting zone between relationships, friendships, family relationships, jobs, living arrangements, all these things. And so we're going to have these times and moments where these conversations are needed to be had. And the delivery and also having the conversation is very important because that allows people to not have this festering energy, have this lingering things that are just kind of left there. Once people get that communication clarity, they might not like it sometimes, it might not be what they want to hear. But in the overall, they can get closure and heal and vice versa because they've had the truth and they've had it communicated to them in the most heart centered way that was possible.
Absolutely. And that's where it goes back to we haven't had that platform, right? We
Yeah,
haven't really been
yeah.
talk heart centered or to communicate in ways where we're not being defensive or all the
Mhm.
attachment wounds that come along with that, all those parts and pieces. So I think that's where we're at right now is learning how to build that, how to work with that, so it's coming from a heart-centered place, but also gives us enough space to do exactly what we want without having so much. I want to say damage. The word damage is coming up after it. If it
Yeah,
gets to,
but it is true. It is true. It creates
yeah,
damage.
yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Or a complete shift outs of relationships that could also be repaired. It's like
Yeah.
it's a lot.
I know that in my relationship, genuinely one of our only issues is communication. And I think I'm a really good communicator. But because sometimes when you've been with someone for so long, you have your own wounded associations and reflections and trauma responses that you've already pre-anticipated and subconsciously built up. And then when they're flaring up with each other, it's just really difficult to kind of step back from that in the moment. Like you say, if you're not modeled healthy communication as a child, conflict resolution, time out to regulate and what regulation looks like, and then coming back and resolving. If you weren't ever modeled that or even told about them things, it's really difficult to just know what to do. And I think so many people that are parents will know that. Like, you are literally reparenting your inner child as you're parenting your children because I don't want to experience the things I experienced as a child, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, so what do I do? And so it's like this, all right, well, this is what I didn't want. What did I have wanted? And also, what does this child need? Because this child is not me. And so I'm having to kind of reparent my own inner child, but also then learn and trust my intuition about what's coming up for my children, and each child is different. And it is a very fine line dance and all the different things, but there's so much that's coming up there. And I guess a big part of the communication in a whole, for me, what's huge and massively different than ever before in my life is me being able to kind of own my vulnerability and pain in a very vulnerable way rather than an angry way, and rather than I'm gonna
Or
defend myself kind of way, it's
yep. So
very much, and there's no shame about it too, which is really different for me. Even when other people are around, I'm not afraid to say, well, that made me feel like this because of this.
yep.
To people that are really close to me, people I would never have dared have even said this to them, never mind around other people too. Like, the growth is real. And this is what I mean. I see the change in the biggest change is me validating it for me, knowing that actually I don't need you, or anyone around me to tell me that that's valid for me to sit here and say, actually, this is valid. And
Totally.
that shifted so much a few years ago for me to, and then the communication trickled in. That acknowledgement was so valid, but then it took a little while for that to be comfortably expressed out of my body. Like, yeah, I knew that a few years ago, but then could I have sat there and said, well, I'm feeling this way because of this, and this triggered me in this way because of this, and now I need this form of repair or conflict resolution or communication to kind of happen so that I can feel safe and calm in my body. Like, no way would I have been able to get there, even after having the acknowledgement. I think it took time for my body to sit with that. Okay, yeah, I'm still validating it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm still validating it. And then again and again and again until I was like, okay, I'm validating it enough now to feel safe to share it. And even then it got shut down sometimes. And I was like, actually, no. And the validation of still, even when being met with shutdown, the validation of self still, even articulating just because you don't see it as valid or just because you don't validate it doesn't mean it's not valid because I validate it, and saying that out loud takes all power away from anyone that was trying to make you feel small, make you feel insignificant. If you don't allow that to be small and insignificant because you are validating it, number one, ain't nobody else going to make you feel that way. And that's what's so powerful because it's an internal choice whether you allow the emotion to be acknowledged within yourself as valid. And as I think as soon as we all kind of start sitting with them inner children, inner versions of us, and validating and healing them, sitting with, communicating, the loving them, giving them what they need, that's when the real healing and growth changes in the whole of us, relationships, life, humanity. Changes there, I think.
I want to just kind of go back and circle a little bit, highlight a little bit of what you said. A big piece to me that came through that had to be being able to express your pain, own it, have responsibility for it, be vulnerable, and communicate about it, right? And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, at least in my experience, what I've experienced and with others in the spiritual community is once it hits the vulnerability and the pain point, there's a lot of, oh, I can't be in that vibe. I
Mm-hmm.
can't,
I've
no,
seen that
that is low, right?
spiritual avoidance.
Yeah, there we go right there. I just want to pull that out for anybody who is really deeply healing their pain and being vulnerable about it and experiencing maybe some of that with friendships and things like that. I just want to
I'm
give a
so
little
glad you put that in there.
I just
I
want
was
to
like,
point
yeah.
out you're doing amazing. Thank you for doing that. That's exactly what's going to create the authenticity and the healed portion of yourself. And I encourage everybody, including myself. I don't walk in shame when I talk when my pain comes up. I verbally
Mhm.
communicate about it. I feel about it, and that's what helps me get vulnerable and move through the process. And I think a lot of times with that bypassing like that, that's really painful because it makes you feel like your pain is shit, actually, that you're low vibe,
Yeah,
you have pain, that you're not going to
right.
exist in a highly ascended space. I'm like that, nope, nah.
Mhm. I call that out. That ain't true. And exactly that because you worded that so perfectly because it is, you see it so often. I've seen it so much. Oh, I can't be around them. They're just neg vibes. Oh, they're just so negative all the time. Oh, they're just so low frequency. They just drain my energy. And it's like, hang on a minute. Like, let's all just be real for a second. Like, that's fine if you feel that way. That's cool. But can we ask why? Because a lot of the time, all they're doing is experiencing a human emotion. Are we all just now saying that we don't experience human emotions anymore? Is that where we're at in the spiritual world? Like, are we not feeling human things? Like, do we not feel sadness or grief or jealousy or anything other than neutrality? Because if that's the be all and end all, you can count me out. Like, I am
Yep, yep,
a
no,
roller
out
coaster of
here.
human emotions. And that's why I love working with you, Z, because we come on and go where we're at today and we're like, right, let's go. There's no, oh, how do we fluff it? How do we fake it? Shall we reconvene on a better day? I'm not saying we haven't done that. We have on some days, but it's not because of not being afraid to own it. That's the point. Like, if we're feeling the type of way, we're going to speak about it. We're going to share the vibrational energy. And it's not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. But, I've walked with people who walked with me through my dark nights of the soul, and they didn't fix me. They didn't heal me. They didn't
Absolutely,
even pick me up off the floor. But do you know what they did? They walked at the side of me. They
absolutely,
walked with me. And,
Absolutely.
they were walked in times where I could not see the light, did not know where it was, did not know what the next chapter of the day was, but they just kept on walking with me until I found that again for me. And that's where I found my people. And
Yep.
sometimes I've seen them now, other people going through that. And don't get me wrong, there's been a line in life, not with them people, but there has been a time in life where I was around certain frequencies where it was kind of like a hamster wheel of kind of like a pity party. I'm just going to say it kind of well. And it was like there was so much choice being presented every single day and so many messages being brought, so many gifts, beautiful things, and there was only one lens. And that for me, that was too much. And I kind of had to say, listen, like, it's just a bit much for me. I love you and I send you so much healing on your journey, but I do need to take a step back from that. And I have done that in life. So I'm not saying that I haven't. I've done that. But also, I'm now walking through spaces with people that sometimes it ain't the best that time. I don't have the most jolliest experience. But you know what? I know they're going through the dark nights of the soul in them times. And I know that them people walked with me when I want the most jolliest of experiences. And that's what we do. That's what I do, and that's what they do. And like I said, you don't have to do that if it feels awfully wrong. But for me, that's part of the human experience. That's part of being a spiritual being living in a human experience. It's to walk with each other when them days get dark and to keep on walking till they get lighter again. It's not to stay there. If someone kind of pitches up a tent, that doesn't mean you have to stay with that frequency. That's okay if you need to choose your own path. But also, I don't think there's anything wrong with holding people's hand and walking with them for a little bit of time when they just need someone to kind of hold space. I actually wrote a really nice poem about that, about my inner teen experiencing deep, like loneliness and just
Uh-huh.
wanting, I didn't need anyone to fix me. I just needed someone to actually see me and what I was
Absolutely.
going through at that time. And that was
Absolutely.
huge. So I wrote a really nice poem about that. It's on my TikTok. I will put the link here if anyone wants
Let's
to
do
check that
that.
out.
Yep.
Yeah, and it kind of just explains if you don't know what to do, if someone around you is going through a dark night of the soul, you don't need to fix them. You really don't. You don't need to do anything to fix them. Just be there. I'm not saying sometimes intervention is not needed. I can't speak for every individual case. I get that. But majority of the time, just be there. Be there with them. Don't make them feel like they're a burden, like they're too much, and like they even need fixing. Allow them the time and the space to release, to communicate, to get that out of their body, and just sit with them, be with them, walk with them through the dark days until they find light again. And if it's you in that dark chapter, allow people to walk with you if they're trying to, don't block them out.
Absolutely. I've had my deepest connections are the ones who will just walk with me. They're not these highfalutin spiritual. Absolutely not. They could just walk alongside me through the deepest shit, which would be my
Mm-hmm.
authenticity. If we're really circling and looking at frequency, right? Authenticity is going to be your highest vibe, right?
Right, right, all day.
So your highest vibe is if you're experiencing something deep, you're still in your highest vibe. If you're allowing it to be processed, be witnessed, allow yourself
It's
to,
real.
yep, yeah, it's real. You're going to be vibing much higher than someone who's putting a mask on and pretending that they're better than they are at the moment.
Yeah. And also pretending that they don't feel anything at all. Like that
Totally.
for me is wild. Why are people aiming for neutrality? I don't get that. Like, it's very strange to me, strange concept. Probably because I've spent time in them realms and I'm like, yo, this is boring.
I'm
That's
like,
why I'm like,
I'm like,
you're all striving to get there. And I'm like, no, I'm okay down here. I'll stick with the wildness and the flow of the fire, all of the things in between because it's so much more fun. And that's the point. The contrast is the point. I'm not saying you need to choose the lower stuff. Obviously not. Clearly not. Who chooses that intentionally? But when it's there, stop trying to make it go away. Just sit with it for a little right while. There's a reason why it's even there in the first place. Sit with it, dance with it a little bit, question it. I'm like, sit down like I'm in an interrogation with it. Who, what, where, why, when, what happened? I literally investigate all the emotional feelings. And and sometimes that doesn't work. But the point is I allow it to just be and sit with it and communicate with it, question it, feel it, move it. Don't try and get rid of it because I think that's the point, like Z said, the aspiration is not to not feel and it's not to have hire gurus tell you what to do with it because really, truly, no one can tell you what to do with something that's coming from inside of you,
Totally.
you know.
Totally. Yeah, well, this was a beautiful chat.
Really was. It was. It just beautifully intertwined it in its own way. So if anyone is playing catch up right now, know that we're kind of all doing it in some way or another. You know, the financial situation in Earth is strained right now as well. Just wanted to highlight that. Felt like it was relevant. There's a lot of like blurred lines there too. Everything's going up. Money seems to be going down for people. Crisis is coming out. But I don't know. You know, I mean, we could say that for everything else in the world too, of all the mentions of the WAR and the civil things, you know, going on. There's so much going on in the human realm. But I guess the one thing I wanted to mention on that, I didn't preemptively think about this, but it's coming up now, is the main message I keep getting is we knew there was a WAR in 2020 and 2021, as me and Z have mentioned many times, and a lot of people have in this world. But it was for your soul. It wasn't for your body. It wasn't for money and all these things. And so now, kind of guess the best way to translate that to people that wasn't aware and experienced that and didn't know is through the physical realm and through the physical portrayal of this side and this side and this hat and this hat and this version and this version for people to finally get to their own truth, their own awakenings, their own voice, their own independence, their own sovereignty. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know. I only kind of know what's coming up on my timeline. I don't even know that. But what I mean is I only can tap into that feeling and frequency. But what I do know is I don't have this immense fear. I do not feel it and I don't feel it's necessary. And so if you are feeling that a little bit right now, because it is genuinely present in the collective, it's been rammed down everyone's face. So I get it. If you are feeling that, take a little bit step back and I want you to ask a future version of you to come forward, to come sit next to you and ask them some questions. You know, if you need to kind of write some down, maybe write a letter to yourself from your future self. It's all concurrent with the energies. Nothing is past, present, future because there is no time. There is no, it's just a different destinational place in the universe. And so that version of you can come forward and talk to this version of you, just like we can go talk to his inner child. And so ask, instead of going backwards, go forwards. Ask the future version of you what's going on, some reassurance, what's going on for them in their life right now. Because I guarantee you'll find some peace and connection in knowing that that's not where we're going, especially not on those on the higher timeline of the heart frequency. So stay true. Remember, this is also the collective catching up. So those that wasn't aware of what happened and didn't know are now catching up. So let it be. Don't feed into the fear. Allow it to just unravel in its own time. Send love, send calm, send grounding. And yeah, just know that we're all in catch up in some way or another.
We are, and maybe a little bit of play, get some creative stuff
Yeah,
out. It's a good time for that, and whatever emotion is coming up, or whatever your future self, or your child self, or your teenage self says, give them some space to speak and integrate a little bit more, and just keep reorienting yourself into, what you want to do, a platform that you can create for yourself that makes you feel a little safer in your body, connections where you feel really real with each other, where you have the ability to walk with each other and fully get vulnerable. And
yeah,
um, process filling into your own internal compass.
yeah. Truly, truly, truly. Yeah, I'm so grateful for this chat, Z. Thank you for your words of wisdom as always. And you
Welcome.
guys know what to do. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you're keeping in touch. Make sure you are asking questions, leaving comments, get involved. We want you to get involved. We want to be connected with you guys. And as always, if you are interested in the upcoming workshop day and retreats that are going on this year, please do drop us a message to the email below. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Love you guys so much.
Bye,
Bye.
beautiful.